topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, sunny Florida. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Hey, this is the first Monday of the month, and that means Provise Management Group. And I got to tell you, we start promoting this show on Friday, and I got to the office this morning and I had 7 emails waiting for me saying, make sure you ask Ray about the big, beautiful bill. Everybody wants to know, is it still the big, beautiful bill? And I got to tell you, there is no one on this earth that I trust more than Ray Ferrara when it comes to questions like this and anything about the economy. Good morning, Ray.
Well, Steve, good morning. Nice to be with you as always on the first and the third Monday of the month. And thank you for the very nice words. And wonderful to hear that people were writing in and asking about the one big beautiful bill.
People trust you, Ray. You know, I don't trust any of the media anymore, any of them. And it's so nice and refreshing to have a show like yours. Even I was just asking Ray, I was in the grocery store yesterday. We're doing the show here in Florida, and Publix is probably the biggest grocery store here. And coffee's gone up like $7. And I thought it was because of the tariffs. And I asked Ray, and Ray starts telling me about what's going on with coffee. But Ray, I got to tell you, people really appreciate your knowledge. I'm in awe of what you did with Provise Management Group. It's amazing. Tell people, first of all, about Provise Management Group.
Well, Stephen, Provise is a financial planning and investment management firm with the emphasis on financial planning. We see investment management a subset of a financial plan, along with estate planning, retirement planning, education planning, budgeting, risk tolerance, all the different types of insurance that we have to have, automobile, homeowners, life, disability, long-term care. All of those things we see as a subset of the financial plan. And unlike most firms where people call themselves financial planners, we actually do the financial planning. We're serving about 1,100 families across 30 plus states here in the United States. And we're managing right at about $2 billion of assets as of the end of June. So we always offer the listeners of this show an opportunity to get to know us with a complimentary 1-hour consultation in our Clearwater or Tampa office. And if that's not convenient, we because we deal with people in over 30 states, we do an awful lot of Zooming around these days. So we always make available a Zoom interview as well. And if people would like to take advantage of that, all they have to do is to call our offices at 800-633-3049. That's 1-800-633-3049. And while we're talking about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, whether you want to take advantage of the complimentary hour consultation or not, we have prepared a total report on the One Big Beautiful Bill So when you
Mm.
call, if you will just ask for it and give us your email address, we will email it to you so that you can read our entire summation at a personal level of the 900-page act.
Well, Ray, first of all, I got to tell you, we just got a text in. It's a Governor Ron DeSantis question.
Oh, my.
And he wants to know, do you think Governor DeSantis is going to get rid of the property taxes?
So certainly the governor has talked about trying to find a way to do that. The property taxes are primarily a tax at the local level. And you think of all of our county, city, town governments, much of how they are funded is through property taxes. If they're able to do that, they're going to also have to come up with a solution as to how these local governments are going to be able to create revenue and enforce. So it's not like we're going to eliminate taxes. We're just going to eliminate. He would like to eliminate it based on property and then do it on something else. Will that happen? I think it's going to be tough for him to get that through the legislature. The legislature has certainly shown some reluctance to embrace the governor this past year, the way they have in his previous 6 years as governor. He will be a lame duck governor during this session, which weakens his position even more. And there's certainly opposition, vocal opposition, and strong political opposition to the idea, certainly in the House. So I think it's going to be hard pressed to get it done. I do think it's a very good conversation to have. And we'll just have to see how this all shakes out.
You know, Ray, we're still talking about the one big beautiful bill. And because people trust you, your knowledge, how would you grade it so far?
Well, it's way too early to give it a grade.
Okay.
I think we can give it a grade on the hope of the one big beautiful bill. And the hope is that it will result in lower taxes, income taxes, for many individuals. Certainly the break on overtime pay, the break on tips is very good. The additional $6,000 extra deduction for seniors being 65 and older, just to name a few, are going to put more money into the hands of people. But that's not going to really begin happening until, for the most part, until next year. All of those things starting in the next year. So it's going to take time for us to really be able to judge it. And the interesting thing will be when you and I are together next August, and we are closing in another 90 days on the election for the entire House of Representatives and for 1/3 of the Senate. If the economy is moving in a positive direction, then clearly the president and the Republicans are going to say, see what we did with the one big beautiful bill. And the Democrats are going to find themselves in a very difficult position. On the other hand, you can fully expect that if the economy is slowing or has slowed and hasn't recovered yet, that the Democrats are going to be all over the one big beautiful bill. Regardless of what happens, and this is what people really need to understand, regardless of what happens in the elections next year, the one big beautiful bill is here for the next at least 4, maybe even 5 years. Why?
Correct.
Even if the Democrats were to take control of both houses, the president would veto anything that came out to change it. And assuming that it doesn't change over the next 3.5 years, you go through another election cycle, and let's assume that there's a sweep by the Democrats of both houses of Congress and the White House. It's going to take 6 to 12 months to pass a new bill to get rid of it. So you just, is whether you like it or whether you don't, just accept the fact that it is most likely here for at least 4 more years and more likely 5 more years. So let's just deal with it today the way it is, and then we'll see what happens in the future.
Ray, how are estate taxes affected by this one big beautiful bill?
Well, they're touched on in a number of different ways, Stephen, and I think to the better. You know, the Democratic Party talks about that this is all about the billionaires. Well, frankly, as far as the estate tax provisions are concerned, it might be for some millionaires, but it is certainly not for billionaires. And it affects a significant amount of what I'll call the rich, but not the ultra rich families. So you take an entrepreneur who builds a company up, pays taxes all the way along, et cetera, and builds up a nice net worth. Let's say it's 10, 15, maybe even $20 million. And then to die and then have to give 40% of it back to the government just seems a bit unfair. So what this bill does is it will raise the amount that you can give away during your lifetime or at death to $15 million per person, so $30 million for a couple. It will be adjusted for inflation going forward. And as long as you're giving and letting inheritance pass of less than $30 million, there'll be no estate tax. And candidly, I believe that that's a fair way to approach and reward people who build businesses successfully and to be able to pass it on to their heirs. In addition to all of that, it also kept the rate at 40%. There was a lot of concern that the rate might change. So for the next 4 or 5 years, as we just chatted about, it's going to be a minimum of $30 million that can be passed on, and I think that's a good thing. One of the things that all folks, whether they have to worry about estate taxes or not, but particularly those that are under the $30 million limit as a couple, 15 for an individual, you need to really start doing some tax planning around anything in your portfolio that has significantly high capital gains to it, and try to manage those capital gains. And that's one thing that we should also mention, and it affects estates, is they left in place the step up in basis at death, which means if you bought some shares of stock at $100 a share and they've appreciated to $250 a share, that capital gain that you have of $150 per share gets stepped up, and so the heirs get the money at a cost basis of $250 a share. But still, you want to manage that capital gain during your lifetime.
What about the Roth conversions? Or is that still a good option?
So, as is often the case, the answer is both yes and no. Yes, it's good to consider it, but no, because of some of the provisions that exist relative to your income levels. So one of the complicated things about this bill is that there are different years in which the tax changes come into play. Some this year, some have to wait till next year. That's kind of number one. Number two, we have to look at it because there are a lot of things that phase out depending upon how much money you're making. For instance, with tips and overtime, there's phase outs to that, but they're two different phase outs. They're not the same for both the tips and the overtime. The same is true of the $6,000 extra deduction for seniors. So you have to really manage, to the extent that you can, your income to be able to take advantage of the different provisions that are there, including still doing a Roth conversion. So yes, it still is worth considering. And then depending upon your income, it'll help make a determination as to whether it's worthwhile or not.
Let's talk about state and local taxes, SALT, which got a big boost.
I think it was Henry Ford who said, anybody who salts their meal before they taste it, I don't want to do business with. Well, clearly, this is a salty issue. And the Congress struggled with it because there were lots of senators and members of the House whose constituents in high property tax areas, including here in Florida, that were limited to only $10,000 per year, regardless of what they paid in property taxes. If you paid property taxes of $35,000, you could only deduct $10,000 of that. So that it gave in a tax bracket of 30%. That would give about $5,000 more in taxes to the government. So what they did is they raised the limit to $40,000. They only raised it for the next 3 years, so it'll apply to 25, 26, and 27. But in 28, it'll go back down to $10,000 unless Congress changes it. That's one part you have to consider. The other part that you have to consider is, again, there's a threshold of income. And if you exceed those thresholds, then you will start losing money of your property taxes and state and local income taxes. And you'll start losing, but you can never go below $10,000. So it's there for 3 years. There are limits on income as to the full deductibility of the amount that you take down, and then you could lose all of that increase, but you still would always get $10,000.
Before the show, Ray and I do a little show prep, and it's amazing. One of the things we talked about, we just got a viewer from looks like can't read. Anyway, it's about 237, Ray.
Yeah.
What is that?
So this is another interesting provision.
Winter
that's in
Park
the bill.
is where he's from.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, the texter is Norman from Winter Park.
Well, Norman, this is a very complicated part of the bill. I struggle to figure out why they did this. I guess it was one way of trying to reduce the noise around that this is for billionaires. But essentially what it says is that if you are in the top tax bracket, which is 37%, then you are going to lose part of your itemized deductions for an amount equal to whatever your income is over the top bracket, which is, if memory serves me, is like anybody over $650,000 or $670,000 of income. And so the effect of the 237th is that you're in the 37% tax bracket, but you can only deduct 35% of that 2% less against your taxes. So it's saying, I'm going to let you deduct these amounts at 35% while I'm going to tax you at 37%. So it increases the taxes for somebody in the upper brackets.
Why did they do that?
Stephen,
I don't understand.
The easier way to have done that would have been to raise the top tax bracket. It would have been so much easier. It may have been politically unpopular because people don't understand 237ths.
Right.
But they do understand an increase from 37 to 38% or 39%. But it would have been so much easier if they had done it that way as opposed to the way they're doing it. So again, You can deduct it as if you're in a 35% tax bracket for the amount over the maximum for the 37% bracket, but you're going to get taxed at 37%.
You know, I always brag on your crystal ball, Ray. You know, we talked about the feds and the interest rates, and you said they're not going to touch them. You're right. They didn't touch them again. What's going to happen in September?
Well, you know, how that question might have gotten answered before last Friday will be different the way it is going to be answered this Monday. There was going into last Friday, there was a 50-50 chance that they would raise the rate in September's meeting. I think we're going to see that continue to move up between now and the September meeting. And the primary reason is the jobs report that came out last week.
Yes.
And that essentially was that new jobs created were 73,000, where 100,000 were anticipated. So that was a weak report. But what really set on their fannies was the fact that there was a revision from the previous 2 months of over 250,000 jobs, which actually were more jobs than were said to have been created. Nobody's talking about that. Just they're talking about the big number. And of course, this has led to the president firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who is a political appointee. He's entitled to do that. It also causes some concern about if we come out next month and the numbers jumped way back up again, is that number any more legitimate than the number that we had before?
Right.
The biggest issue, I think, for the Bureau of Labor Statistics is that their sampling size, ever since COVID, has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Less people, less businesses are reporting back to the government, and with less data, you're going to end up with more variability. It's the old garbage in, garbage out routine. So I think the president says he wants to, quote, modernize it, whatever that means. But I think what they really need to do is to find a way to compel businesses to report the data as something that is required, maybe even as a public disclosure month by month through the SEC. So coming back to the basic question, I think that I think the odds of a increase are there, particularly if the numbers are low again in September, because the Fed has two mandates. One is to keep inflation down, but the other is to have a full employment. So I'm right now leaning towards them raising the rate in September 1/4 point.
Wow. That ought to get Trump.
If I said raising, I misspoke. I think I did say raising. I think they're going to reduce interest rates by 1/4.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, Ray. Oh my God, Trump would have a cow.
I need more of that expensive coffee, I think, for this Monday morning.
So you think in September they might lower it?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a very good possibility of that. I wouldn't be a bit surprised that by the time the jobs report comes out in early September, which is well before their meeting in the middle part of the middle to latter part of the month, I think we're going to see the odds being somewhere between 70 and 80% in favor of a rate decrease of 1/4 point.
1/4 point.
Right.
Okay. Ray, tell people how they can reach you.
Sure. First of all, you can go to our website, which is provise.com. That's PROVISE.com. Or give us a call at 800-633-3049. Don't forget, we have a synopsis of the One Great Big Beautiful Bill Act that is all about personal taxes. So if you'd like to have a copy of that, just call and we will email it out to you. Or if you want to take advantage of our 1-hour complimentary consultation in our Clearwater or Tampa office or by Zoom, you can schedule that again by calling 800-633-3049. 3049.
Ray, we are so lucky to have you. Ray's going to be back with us in 2 weeks. And Ray, I can't thank you enough. Have a wonderful week. God bless you.
Thank you, Steve. You have a great week as well.
And that's Ray Ferrara, Provise Management Group. We're going to do a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.